So we are setting up for Abom Wing. You're seeing the end of Death Knight Wing, and most commonly that will be the setup where you go from Death Knight into Abom. So just know that is pretty typical for a lot of raids. We'll talk why you do Abom last later. In some groups, you may do Abom first. Again, I don't know your situation. The complexity of Naxx is why it's so tough to talk about in great detail because your situation may not be the same as others with optimal ways to do things. So, again, as I've said before, my goal is just to give some overarching thoughts and guidance as someone that's cleared Naxx over 250 times, 300 times, 500 times. It's been a lot. And more than that, I've watched a ton of Naxx. If you guys didn't know, Salad Bakers, the great speed run, they wiped on their very first pull in Naxx in 2019. Laddie just ran on in this room when no one was paying attention, and they lost all their world buffs on like the very first pull. So yeah, just know that that happened, and that can happen to you too at any one of these wings. A-bomb wing is another one that's scary right off the bat. So what you see here is we wait for this retcher to leave. You're always going to have this patrol of a retcher at the start here. So just know that's something that cannot be avoided. And I always recommend that you don't fight that at the same time. These retchers are super, super dangerous. In a speedrun setting, you're going to fish for an instance that has patrols that are not retchers. In a casual setting, you're just going to have to deal with some of these retchers and the rest of this A-bomb wing. But just know at the start here, you're always going to have one. So what we do is wait for that to leave, and then we pull everything together, or that's what we should do. And a full world buff group like this that has everyone with reaction potions. Yes, everything's stacked and we just blast it down. So we're not worried about the cleave and crazy amount of damage that these guys do, as we are confident in our raid's damage to be able to kill the skull and X target before there's issues. But if you are not a buffed raid, I would not ever recommend stacking 4 of these. 2 is the most that you will stack if you are unbuffed. Maybe only 1 if you're hardcore. Like, these things hit really, really hard. The problem is if you don't have a free action potion on, they do more damage. That stun hits you as well. And that's kind of the thing that a lot of people underestimate is the combination of damage. And typically, like, we're not super in danger there, right? Like, we stacked 4 mobs because we killed things fast and we used free action potions. But the problem is when you don't do those sort of things and understand the mechanics and why you focus the targets that you do, that things get really out of control. So getting good at that is what Naxx is really all about. So we just clear out the couple patrols here. Just know in this first room, so let's walk in the room, right? We kill the first pack, and then there's going to be 2 retcher patrols in this room that just walk around. So my recommendation is to take care of those 2 retcher patrols before anything else. Again, these retcher patrols are the #1 issue in this wing because of their knockup. Their knockup hits really, really hard. It's just rough. So we kind of go aggressive here with doing this 3-pack super quick because we still had free action potion up for some time. So this is a higher level strat that I would not recommend for like 99% of groups. But high level groups, they're not going to have this first pack anyways. This first pack is typically going to be pulled to another wing if you're a speed run. So just know this first area, again, can just be totally different depending on what you are doing and what you're seeing. But for what we do, we went really fast here. We were able to kill this retcher before the knockup while we're moving, which is something that we don't always do. This is a raid group that has DMF and like full world buffs, lots of warriors, that kind of stuff, right? So we're powerful. But we got hit by the stun here, so Zert wasn't able to pull the next mob because he just got barely clipped. It's a pretty big range. Like, this kind of shows it's surprisingly big. This is a good example right there to be like, casters, you got to back up. This is also an area to understand that cleave is like I don't really know how to say it correctly. Not proximity based, but it'll like chain off of other people. So as a raid group here, when we're all like this, we want to have 2 separate groups. We don't want to have a couple people in the middle like this because see how Zagger runs and moves backwards? That's partly for the stun, but partly just because the cleave would cause issues as well. So same thing here. This is 2 green mobs. The goal is just to kill 1 mob quickly in this pack. If you can kill the skull quickly, you're all set. This was really scary because we kind of slow on 1 or 2 of the targets. If you get a knock up there, as well as when the stun happens, when 2 or 3 mobs are alive, it can be really, really deadly. So this was good timing for us. Grobbulus is up top here. As soon as Grobbulus gets to its end of its patrol, pull 40. 40 seconds after Grob gets to its end, these ads spawn. They do some AoE damage that you see. I get a little confused. I think it's like, no, Braves is getting hit as well. I thought it was maybe like pushback, but I think it's just proximity based. So you saw it did a fair amount, but if you're max range, if you're stunning these targets, if you're focusing them, they die really fast and they're not super dangerous. Some people say to split them up, but if you're able to cleave them down a lot faster and not take too much damage, it's much better just to stack these ads. In basically all of this wing and in all of the wings that we've talked about, right, as much as possible, when you can stack targets so that you're able to kill 2 or 3 without dealing as many mechanics, that's what it's all about. So on this pack, we don't have a free action potion available, so we stack 2 of them together. They're a little close here. Moon got pulled, so this is worst case scenario that's happening right now, where casters are potentially getting stunned, and yeah, it got super weird there, but we handled it right, so just need to have some control sometimes and just deal when things get bad. So there's going to be 2 patrols in this next room. Sometimes they might be retchers, sometimes they may not. Again, that's the power of a speed run and fishing a correct instance. But here we have to deal with the retcher at the same time as we're dealing with this patrol. We got, or this mini slime pack. We got kind of lucky here. On this retcher, it did its spit here instead of its knock up. So just kind of a 50-50 thing, I think. And that wombo of the spit and the knockback, that's what really can kill you. So you see the spit there, it did like 3k damage, 3.5k damage, whatever. But that plus the knockup, that just really wombos some lower health casters. So I think this was our first death of the raid. We've, like I said, only raid group to have 2 deathless raids. And unfortunately, this was not one of them. So we lost someone on this. The Paladins really like to go in using their bubble, and they're going to then use their different holy spells, Holy Wrath, Consecration, a Holy Water, and just blast that stuff down. You see how the mages are all really blasting as well. Other than that, Zert's doing a good job of pumping them down. You just rely on the range on this pull. This is a good example. If you're a hunter, watch how Zert doesn't move much. The focus of Zert is to do damage while standing still in a safe spot, right? If you can be an absolute turret like this, that's the goal. So turret mode, just finishing off the ones that have high health. So then the ones that are more healthy are the ones in the back. That just means that other people can continue to turret mode, right? So I thought that was a good example of how you want to handle that. In a speed run, you're going to run through this area. So there's a whole bunch of different tech in this wing. Not going to talk about a whole ton of it, but again, we're just going to clear out a couple of the patrols now. So basically, there's on each of these monstrosity packs, there's an attached patrol. So those patrols you don't touch. You got to just learn the U shape on each of the monstrosities, and that's the one area to understand with patrols. The second patrols to understand is, I believe there's 2 or 3 that go through this room, and then 2 more that patrol on the other side. So like total of 3, 4, 5 at most. Not a whole ton. The thing to understand is the ones that are not part of the U shape, they can be pulled without socialing the other ones. So it's a little bit sketch, but again, notice how Zert here feels safe pulling these ones. Like he's going to go pull this far one here that looks like it might potentially social, but we're just confident that it doesn't because they're part of the patrol long ways rather than the U's. So again, that's what this one is right here that he's going to pull now. And I believe there might be one more, or that's all of them now. I think that's all of them. So maybe it's just 3 total. I think there's a 4th somewhere. But now we do the 4-pack. So this 4-pack we use a free action potion on. In total we've used 2 free action potions in this wing on that first pull and this pull. We didn't have it for the other 2 times that there were stun packs that we killed, but on those stun packs we just dealt with it. I guess on that first potential bad stun pack we still had our free action potion for a couple seconds, but that's really not typical for us. So we jump across the slime. This is a big point of gamerness if you have your mug so you don't take damage when you jump over. Paladins, I don't recommend that you use your bubble. I recommend that you save it for these next upcoming dangerous ones. Priest can use levitate to get over this. Mages, if you're going to blink over, you got to be diagonal with your blink. So you just got to be really safe. Notice how all the mages do get across correctly. Let's see if we can see any blinks. See, notice how far me like blinked from a distance. The problem is if you go to the edge of that river right there and blink, you're going to pull this pack. Seen it wipe a lot of groups, lots of first time people. Got to be really careful with how you get across and deal with this area as a mage. So there's different strategies for this trash, but the only thing to understand is killing the monstrosity fast. Whatever is best for you to kill one target fast, do it. Some groups they do a pull timer, like pull 6, that kind of stuff. The problem that I have with that is there's always someone that doesn't know how to count, right? They do it on 3 seconds or 2 seconds and it just throws everything off every single time. So this was unfortunate. I think we got a totem that just wasn't killed quickly and a really quick death because of it. So we got a fear on the opener and we didn't have fear wards on everyone. It's really important on this first pack that everyone doesn't get feared. That just set us behind a little bit. So yeah, unfortunate. And then the totem just owned us out of the fear. As soon as that totem goes down, you have to kill it. And the target macro that worked in 2019 doesn't work anymore. That got changed when TBC came out. So Blizzard loves to say that they don't change our game, but we know that they do. There's countless examples of it. Don't try and hide our truth, Blizzard. So this is part of the U Patrol. There's 3 more of these monstrosity packs coming up, and each time we're just dealing with these U Patrols. The Belchers are the easy ones, but you need to kill these Bile Sludges. I'd have to I don't know if we even have it in the log media files of when we wiped to Patchwerk from the sludge. I called out, guys, you need to kill the sludge, and we didn't kill it in time. They have a super, super long social range where they like call for help. It's not super often, it just happens once in a while, and it can aggro Patchwerk and all of these packs at the same time. When Patchwerk aggroes, all these packs aggro, so you just wipe. So really important you kill those little sludges that spawn on these packs. Okay, so yeah, another totem goes, wish I could talk. When the totem goes down, it's really important that you kill it quickly. First thing that you do is kill this totem. So kill skull, we see the totem goes down, totem is killed, and there's a lot of separation that needs to happen on this pack. I don't recommend mages get super close. Mages like to arcane explosion, but it's dangerous. When you get in melee range, your threat is much higher compared to being at range. How much threat you need to have to pull. So all you care about, instant spells, killing skull quickly each time, and then adjusting. I forget which of the 2 can be stunned. I think it's the scientist. You'll just have to figure that out. Terrible guide. Correct me in the comments, Paladins. I'm just not thinking in the moment. But you can't hodge the monstrosities, the main thing you care about, or the retchers. The whatever it is, the belchers can be stunned. So you can stun the belchers, but not the retchers. But yeah, one of these 2 kinds of ads can be stunned. They do a mana burn. I've seen people from 100 to 0 just absolutely owned, like a warlock before. They had like 5k health and a ton of mana and just got mana burned 100 to 0. So on this trash, as a caster, in some ways I recommend not being full mana after seeing that. Like it just blew my mind how fast that death happened. If you remember that one, I'm not going to be able to find it. But it was just super, super quick. So actually I could find it. I'm just too lazy to be really. Patchwerk, it's a fight that people overcomplicate. So let's just watch the setup here. And this is me main tanking, okay? So all I do is shoot my bow. I could also throw a dynamite at the same time. I wouldn't recommend throwing a grenade. You have a farther range if you throw a grenade, but it's immune. Grenade doesn't do any damage, so it doesn't add any threat. And the big issue is that one of the melee over here, they do something that causes threat, and your bow hit doesn't hit enough, right? So they pop a Mighty Rage, or they Blood Rage, or Paladins heal someone. You know, something weird happens, and Patchwerk runs away from the tanks. That's worst case scenario. So number one important thing about the opener is having a basic opener. I recommend that you always keep Patchwerk still, and the tank is the one that does the opener. That simple. Whatever kind of threat, well, other people are not doing any threat. Then the boss comes, the tanks stack together. First hit, the tanks all need to be together. On the first hit, if the tanks are not stacked together, you are setting yourself up for failure. So I back up while the other tanks move a bit forward. I use my sapper on the opener, and now I have top threat. Tuco is the only other soaker. We are single soaking here. In most starter fresh raids, I would recommend double soaking. The idea with double soaking is that whoever the highest health is, that is not main tanking, that is in the top 4 of threat, is going to get hit by a unbalanced or whatever, the hateful strike. So the hateful strike, it hits really hard. And because of that, you want to have a pairing of stamina and avoidance. You want to be able to get hit twice by a hateful without dying. So that's like 12k health, 12.5k health to feel really safe. And then in addition to that, any additional dodge and parry, that kind of stuff that makes it so you have less times of getting hit, that would be the way that I would optimize your gear. Some people, they just go really heavy and go like 14k health, 15k health, and I think that's totally fine too. Really, as long as you are in your mic gear and whatever your mic gear is, you're going to be okay as long as the healers do their job. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. The healers just need to know who to heal. So again, on a solo soak like this, it's really simple. We have 4 people on the main tank and everyone else healing the off tank. It would be pretty similar with a horde raid like this, where you just need to make sure people are stacked and you're chain healing like crazy and everyone else is not in range of the chain heal. But again, that's kind of the challenge of like, you don't really ever see just solo soaking that much on horde side. You would really see 2 much more often. So again, in that case, you would have, let's say, I would always have 12 healers in Naxx. I haven't done my full raid roster video yet, but in a 12 healer Naxx raid, I have 4 on the main tank, and then everyone else healing the only soaker, so that's 8. In a duo soaker setup, we would have 5 on the main soaker and 3 on the off soaker. So the 5 people would be spamming that guy that has a higher health pool, and that way they're the one that gets hit more often and have more heals allocated to them. And then that off person, hopefully they'd have like, 11k health, and they're able to take a big hateful and a pretty good chance of avoiding the other ones. They would have 3 healers that would be able to top them off pretty quickly. You're just spamming a basic heal that you're able to do consistently for the duration of the fight. That's the goal. At the end, if you have extra mana, then you're dumping, and that's great. You want to be able to have mana for the full fight, but find that balance where probably like a 2-minute fight if you have buffs, 3-minute fight if you don't. Use potion cooldowns early, dark runes early, and just find that medium where you're able to keep a rhythm and keep heals going. That's Patchwerk. It really doesn't need to be overcomplicated. As a DPS, you're just keeping your health low if you're not in the top 4. Or if you are in the top 4, that's when you want to have your health low. But everyone just does it because why not? So only the top 4 people that are DPSing on threat really need to be afraid. So in that situation with me and Tuco, there was 2 other people that needed to keep their health low. Everyone else could have kept their health higher. It wouldn't have been a big deal, but just for the sake of being a melee, and being safe, just soak. If you're a caster and you're in the top four, it doesn't matter. You're not eligible, so it's just the top four melee that you care about. Grob, this is a fight that low key is super, super dangerous. I'm just going to talk about the trash now, too. We saw some scariness here. This fight always scares me. So, good stuns here by our rogues. They are helping out on these spewers that can also do a cast, so you want to make sure you're ready to kick these spewers as well. This is another area that is going to be Naxx tech, so just know it will be different depending on speed runs that you see, but here the idea is just to stun them. As long as you can stun them as much as possible, these things are a target dummy, but they do a knock-up. That's why we're fighting and pulling them back, and you see people get knocked up, so I'd recommend trying to be ready to lip them. The problem is if you just come out of Patchwerk, you might have used your potion cooldown and you don't have lip. So Paladins could be the absolute saviors with bops here. If you see someone falling, just bop them. Otherwise, make sure you stay underneath if you know you're not safe. I would recommend not intercepting, so that way if you get knocked up, you can intercept back in. Grob here is low-key super, super dangerous. It's a fight that you always want to make sure your max range is a melee. That's the most important thing to understand. So it puts this poison on the ground behind the boss as it's walking, and that incentivizes the melee to move forward, right? The problem then is there's an ability that he casts, and that ability, anyone in front of the boss gets sprayed. Each person sprayed a additional little glob here that you see is going to get spawned. So we only had one person in front, so only one ad spawned. The problem, if the main tank moves weirdly and all the melee move forward, you wipe. It's the low-key number one fight besides I would say maybe Hygen when it comes to main tank movement that can wipe a raid super, super easily. There's a couple others. Thaddius, you could have some weird movement that we're going to see here soon. Heck, Gluth, we're about to see that's a movement boss as well. So lots of movement after Patchwerk is a fight where you want to have no movement in comparison. So as this raid is going here, you're having one person that cleanses the debuff. One person is going to continually get hit by that debuff. Notice how people are all moving back here and kind of using the same area. You need to make sure that person gets healed as they potentially run through two different clouds. But ideally, you're kind of keeping all these people that get the poison, they just move back in this area that the boss has already been at. Wherever you are and you're fighting this boss, that's your strat. We do the super normal strat here, which is just the grate. You just follow this grate around. The problem, and what speedruns do, is they pull Grobbulus up the ramp. That's for another day, my friends. That's tech. As silly as it sounds, pulling Grobbulus up this ramp is very challenging and wipes a lot of groups because of the two mechanics we just talked about. Dealing with these clouds where they are positioned, it's a challenge. Having everyone behind the boss as you're managing that, that's a challenge, and it causes a lot of issues. So just know Grobbulus is low-key an area where positioning just really matters, and I recommend at the start keeping it as simple as possible. And that's what you see. The melee, if they get hit by the disease, they run into the area they've already been. The problem is when the casters all start going in different areas and then you cleanse different people, and if multiple healers are accidentally cleansing, it gets really chaotic really quickly. So just be ready to use a potential nature potion. Be ready to just pay attention to where your feet are and if you are the one with disease. It's kind of like on Molten Core where one guy gets the bomb without realizing it and they just don't move and it causes real issues. So having one person calling out each person that gets hit with the disease can be kind of helpful early on. I would say that's like a worthwhile call that a second person could make, or like, assigned one person to do that. I would definitely recommend assigning just one person to be cleansing. So this is a fight here that you're gonna see. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go to Waumbek's point of view. We'll watch that at the end. I don't have it pulled up right now. I want to get a good example. We'll watch the Paladin point of view after this, but the Hunter point of view is pretty good as well. It's one of the only two fights in World of Warcraft where you actually matter. So enjoy it. Zerk does go a little too ham here, so again, this is an example of a Hunter hitting really hard. Pops all cooldowns and has to feign. And that's kind of scary. Like I said with movement here, getting off of this grate as quick as possible is really, really important. Where this grate is, a couple ads are going to start spawning like now, and the boss is going to charge to those ads if it's in pretty close proximity. When Gluth charges, it gets 5% of its health back. So it's just important that you drag it to this wall here like Tuco did, and healers move forward as you're seeing. So it's a combination of movement from the tank and the healers at the same time. This is a really common place to have a main tank death because healers are distracted. You see an entire raid that is taking damage, and it's really important that you don't heal the raid, especially on Horde side. The number one way that Horde side wipes on this boss is typically you have a Resto Druid in the back on Horde side, and the Resto Druid hots the entire raid. Well, if you have some goblin healers that decide to heal the raid on this fight, you're absolutely screwed and you have no one to hot and you're just stuck. It gets really chaotic, suddenly mages have to help out and it just gets out of control really fast. So typically you have a piercing howl warrior. One of the off tanks needs to make sure they have piercing howl. And then you have someone kiting. On Horde side, most often it's a Resto Druid. On Alliance side, most often it's a Paladin. Besides that, you just see the Trank Shot. When possible, this Frenzy hits really, really hard. So it's a combination. If you only have one Hunter, there's going to be times where you can't have Trank Shot covered. And when that happens in tandem of healers not paying attention to the tank, they just fall over super fast. This is a fight that you're probably going to want to use Deathwish pretty early and just manage your fear protection more than like any other time besides Neff. Or, yeah, I mean, really just Neff, right? It's rough on Horde side in comparison. You need to just be really on top of Tremors and have a tank that has Deathwish available for this. These are examples of bosses where you're often going to see one tank tank one boss and then one tank tank another boss just to make sure that they can optimally have Deathwish going for the start of each fight and just keep it rolling. It's as important as possible to have opener threat on these so that you can have fast kill times and you have to deal with less mechanics. This boss does a healer or heal reduction over time. So I think Tuco has like 3 stacks. We kill it 4 stacks. Dies with 4 stacks of mortal wounds. So 40% less healing. It starts to get really real really quick when it's like 60 or 70. So what you can do is you can bop it off. That's really good. Again, Paladin is OP. Or on Horde side, you're just going to have a tank swap happen with threat. And again, just managing your fear protection is number one important thing. So combining that Zerka Rage with the Death Wish and having a good shaman and just hoping it works out. As a DPS, using Lip is really good. Lip is powerful because you're not going to die. The problem that happens on Gluth as a DPS perspective is the tank is going to get feared. When the tank get feared and you have fear protection, you're going to die. So save that lip for a time where suddenly the tank is no longer tanking is my recommendation. Which is hopefully towards the end of the fight, and until the end of the fight you're able to have other forms of protection from fear. So that's often why people will Deathwish at the start of Grobbulus. If you're the problem though is like if you Deathwish at the end of Patchwerk, maybe you're not going to have it at the start of Grobbulus, so then you're stuck doing it at the end of Grobbulus or the start of Gluth. So all these sort of decisions with cooldown management are things that you just have to figure out with your raid, and everyone kind of has their own pacing. And you see here, we just have a fine time being Alliance. So as long as you have Fear Words rolling with like 1 or 2 Dwarf Priests, it's super, super simple. Make sure that the tank has fear protection. It's that simple. So Thaddius, Lots of people struggle on this boss if they've never done it before, and it's easiest to explain it how we do here. So negative is going to go to the left, and positive is going to go to the portal. Having that landmark of the portal, I think, is really helpful to people. So other people, there's different ways. I don't want to confuse people, but there's other like phrases and stuff. But positive portal, that's just drill it, drill it, drill it. My thing too is that there's a surprising amount of colorblind gamers in World of Warcraft. So talking about colors is not always the best. I don't know. That's just my take on it. Um, People will say blue portal, but for me, it's just positive portal. So that's positive, right? So what we do is we have everyone on one side and the tank on the other, so we get a little bit of extra damage, but it's so small. The damage at the start doesn't matter until you get this debuff. I guess it is worth talking about this boss before this, Stalag. It's one of the hardest hitting bosses in Naxx, and it's like really undervalued because you typically have only 20 people on this side, right? So always Stone Shield if you're on this side. You need to kill these two bosses evenly. There's DBM stuff, there's different ways you can see their different health. You see he has big wigs, so you can see. Um, I would recommend everyone have a way to know how much health they have, so that way you don't have to click in between the two. But yeah, this side hits really hard. You want to make sure you have two tanks on either side, and you're just ready to pick it up if the second person is not tanking. It's easy to wipe at the start here. If this boss gets past right where Star is right here, if this boss runs to the casters right now, it's going to start doing insane AoE to the raid. You can never let these bosses get past this spot. It's one of the easiest ways to grief, honestly. Like, you need to understand how dangerous it is if this gets past here. It falls apart super, super fast. So just know tanking up top here is all that really matters. I think on the other side, there's like the mana burn where casters stay farther away. And that's why casters are also on this side compared to casters being on the right side. So yeah, you have casters on the left side. Typically we have like one other group as well, maybe a couple other DPS. You see how it's perfectly even in this setup. We have 4 mages, 2 warlocks. Sometimes we should have like 1 warlock on either side for Curse of Wreck, but we just didn't do that. It was perfectly even though, so it's just a weird thing. Sometimes it's super off, sometimes, it just is what it is. So you got to be careful taunting this. I guess in Wild was, or Rao was second, so this was actually a really good taunt. Potentially. It was going to Tuco, then Lazoon taunted, so this taunt wasn't really needed. When this boss is in the air, or when you get tossed to the other side, if you have more threat as the incoming tank compared to someone on the ground here, you're not going to pull. The issue comes when um, only one tank has threat on the side and they get tossed to the other side, and there's someone that doesn't have high threat on the other side. It just can be kind of rough. It's just important that you have 2 main tanks on either side that are highest on threat. If that's not the case, then you might be wanting to be ready to taunt when they swap sides. But as long as the top 2 tanks are the ones highest on threat on that, it's super, super easy. So it's an area that you just have to kind of chill, and it's one of like the few, I would say, relaxing moments as a DPS where you just are like getting through it, and this is where the pump is all about. You do have to make this jump though, so just know this is like a challenge if you don't have buffs. That one misses the jump here, so this is super unfortunate. That one got low health after getting out of the slime here, and 1 out of 40 chance to get targeted by the chain lightning. So just needed to heal themselves instantly after getting out of the slime. So if you are in the slime, you have lower health once you get out, and you might be in big, big trouble then. So as soon as we pick our sides, again, you're going to get randomly selected, positive or negative. If you're on the positive, you go to the portal side. That's simple. Then, when the swaps happen, you just need to know, do you have the same one or do you have the different one? If you have the different one, then you move to the other side. So if it moves, if it changes, you move. If it moves, I can't remember Koopa's phrase. Super simple. So the question is, when are you using your cooldowns? The problem is the tank might go to different sides all the time. Move if it changes. That's the phrase. There we go. Came to me. Move if it changes. Um, the simple thing to understand is that you don't know, right? Tanks might taunt, tanks might swap sides. This is a really RNG fight, and it's an example of a fight that I can already see people freaking out about with Warcraft logs that just can't take it. Um, but it's a real high potential, high DPS fight because of this debuff here. When you're stacked, you have a lot more damage done from this debuff. So that's why you do this boss last going into Saffron. Speedruns, they're going to take this buff into Saffron and try and kill it in about 25 seconds, 20 seconds. So we're not doing that. You need to then split up and make room. If you're doing this boss last, it's tough to make room. You need to have really good spreading, and it's tough. It's the speedrun meta though, so figuring out, are you going to go into Saffron with Polarity, which is like really, really high level, or are you going to spread out, which is like medium level? Doing Abom Wing last in itself is a little bit of tech that people need to figure out where they're going to stand after the boss dies. So, we're not doing that last. That's Abom Wing. Just a couple more things to mention with Thaddius. You can taunt it. So on this boss here, we had a big ignite starting out, and what we do is we taunt off the ignite, or actually, oh yeah, it was a power was a tank. So yeah, we're just juggling between using taunts, using mocking blows, using challenging shouts, and just preventing the mage who's next highest on threat from overtaking the threat meter. So mages are using Petri if they end up getting worried about it, but it's nice when mages don't have to use a Petri on this, or they could just let it drop, but ideally they want to just let that ignite keep rolling the entire time because it does do a lot of damage. So you see Relix there did 7k DPS. Obviously that's split up between the four mages, but that's definitely a fight where mages can really show some fun numbers. So trying to think of other things. Tried to go a little bit faster with this one. Again, I have so much more to say. This is a pretty short wing when it comes to trash. Spend a little bit of time on trash. Maybe we can talk some more speedrun tech, some more trash tech. Lots more to talk about, but for now, I think that's a pretty good summary. We'll stop for a second here and now go to Waumbek's point of view of the Pally tank. All right, so I picked up the. So a quick example here from Waumbek's point of view of Pally tanking on this. Gluth, he's just going to ask the warrior to walk in wide circles while he's standing closer to the center than Waumbek, and just use Howl on the zombies. So just kind of play interference while Waumbek has Righteous Fury up and is using King Spam. He's also in his prot set of gear. He's got his Zanza Swiftness on, as well as potential Nifty or Burrows. Couple ways to get out of trouble if there is trouble, but he only ever gets one stack. The key is not to get hit many times. The problem is this debuff. This debuff hits really, really hard eventually, and the zombies will own you. So the key is if you can not get hit, super simple. Fight is already over. So that's an example of one that could have gone on for a lot longer, didn't look stressed at all, still had a whole bunch of available stuff to get away. Paladins can also use their bubble and then instantly take it off to remove how many debuffs they have. But again, it's just all about not getting a ton of debuffs. So same basic idea would apply to Druid here, where they would just have Resto, or Rejuve, I should say, Rejuves on a ton of the different people, and using some different swiftness potions, um, the cat swiftness, nifties, just different ways to move faster than the ghouls so you don't get hit while you have someone else slowing the ghouls for you. And that's really it.